Decatur Firestone workers have rejected a wage concession proposal for their fellow workers in Oklahoma City. What will that mean for Des Moines Firestone and its workers? Ralph Robinson will have that story. Mike's forecast and Jeff with state wrestling highlights coming up in 30 minutes.
In the White House tonight, President Reagan deciding how to respond to the Tower Commission's critical review of his style and his Iran policies.
NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw. Tonight from Washington.
Good evening. President Reagan hoped to free American hostages by selling arms to Iran, but it was a bad idea, made worse by the clumsy, freewheeling ways of some of his closest advisors. And the president failed to keep track of what they were doing. That is the general judgment of the Tower Commission, which issued its report today. The commission concluded the Iran initiative ran directly counter to the administration's own policies. And the commission criticized the president for not driving the National Security Council, saying the president must take responsibility for the NSC and deal with the consequences. It is clear the president's hands-off style led to some astonishing operations. Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North was involved in many, all over the world. Admiral Poindexter ran many of those operations in secret from the basement of the White House. White House Chief of Staff Donald Regan is responsible for much of the chaos that followed. Secretary Schultz and Weinberger should have intervened, but they did not. There is no smoking gun in this report, no accusations of high crimes and misdemeanors on the part of the president, although the commission does conclude that the legal basis for the Iran initiative during 1985 was at best highly questionable. And as NBC's Chris Wallace reports tonight, the president's management style is directly criticized.
The president tried to embrace the board today, emphasizing he asked for its report. But he seemed shaken. His own panel was so critical.
Whatever this report may say, I have appointed, or I'm proud to have appointed, this distinguished board because it...
And Mr. Reagan was not yet ready to answer all the questions coming from the report. Questions that go to the heart of his presidency. The panel's central conclusion is that Mr. Reagan was out of touch, that he approved broad goals, but couldn't remember key events, and did not know much about the arms deal.
I think he was not aware of a lot of the things that were going on and the way the operation was structured and who was involved in it. He very clearly didn't understand all that.
The Tower Commission says while hospitalized after cancer surgery, the president held one of his first meetings on the arms deal. The president can't remember it. Mr. Reagan also testified to the board he was not told how the arms sale would be implemented, not told that Oliver North was giving the Iranians intelligence, not told the NSC raised private funds for the Contras. The board concludes the president must insist upon accountability. But if the Tower panel seemed a bit hesitant in going after the president, it was much harsher about the NSC, saying Mr. Reagan was deserted by his staff. Panel members had given the president's lack of attention to the consequences of his policy. His top advisor should have protected him.
There should have been bells ringing, lights flashing, and so on, so that there was no question.
Members of the system who were privy to what was going on failed the president.
The board said Secretary of State Schultz and Defense Secretary Weinberger distanced themselves from an operation they opposed to protect their own reputations. The panel was even more critical of Chief of Staff Regan and former National Security Advisor Poindexter, saying they failed to provide the president with the information he needed. It said the key problem was that the architects of the arms deal cut out anyone who might oppose it.
Well, I think the single most important factor here is the over-obsession with secrecy.
Then there's the question of whether this was an arms for hostages deal. The president has maintained all along he was reaching out to Iranian moderates.
We did not, repeat, did not trade weapons or anything else for hostages, nor will we.
But the panel tells a different story. It says the president began discussing the Iran initiative just after visiting the grave of a sailor killed in the TWA hijacking and was enthused about freeing the hostages. And it says Mr. Reagan asked officials almost daily whether there was anything new on the hostages.
The board found a strong consensus among NSC participants that the president's priority in the Iran initiative was the release of U.S. hostages.
The report describes a disengaged president who let his foreign policy run out of control. But White House officials were almost relieved because there was no smoking gun tying Mr. Reagan or Regan to a new horror story. A speech to the nation is planned for Wednesday, in which Mr. Reagan will announce staff and policy changes, trying to drag his presidency out of the arms scandal. Chris Wallace, NBC News, at the White House.
The sharpest criticism in the Tower Commission report is directed at Oliver North and Admiral Poindexter, who were conducting many secret operations from the NSC offices in the White House basement. One of the remarkable passages involves North's formula for trading arms for hostages. As he put it, one 707 airliner with 300 TOW missiles equals one American citizen, AMSIT. Neither North nor Poindexter agreed to be interviewed by the Tower Commission, but as NBC's Andrea Mitchell reports tonight, other witnesses and the paper trail the two men left at the White House provide a fairly complete picture of many of their escapades.
The review board has completed
the Tower Commission describes the National Security Council staff running wild. The report says Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North and his operation functioned largely outside the orbit of the U.S. government. Established procedures were ignored.
The Iran initiative was handled almost casually and through informal channels.
The report says that significant legal questions were never considered, that implementation was very unprofessional, and that CIA Director Casey encouraged Oliver North to take direct control of the operation, but never told that to the president.
Insufficient attention was given to the implications of the NSC staff having operational control of the initiative rather than the CIA.
North was openly contemptuous of the CIA, sending John Poindexter a message by computer last May saying the CIA are really bunglers. The report says the NSC ignored restrictions and that intelligence was passed to the Iranians of potentially major significance to the Iran-Iraq war. The NSC operators became so powerful that when the president of Costa Rica decided to expose the existence of a secret airstrip used to run supplies to the Contras, North and Assistant Secretary of State Elliott Abrams blackmailed the Costa Rican president, threatening to cut off $80 million in promised U.S. aid and threatening to cancel his visit to the White House. President Arias did not expose the airstrip. The White House visit took place. The report portrays an operation obsessed with secrecy. Last May 15th, Poindexter to North. I'm afraid you're letting your operational role become too public. From now on, I don't want you to talk to anybody else, including Casey. Secretary Shultz told the board that at the Tokyo Economic Summit last year, he was misled by Regan, Poindexter, and later by Casey. All told him that the Iran operation had ended. Last September, secret negotiations with Israeli Defense Minister Rabin to get Soviet bloc weapons from Israel for the Contras. A message from Poindexter to North. I think you should go ahead and make it happen. It can be a private deal that we bless. And finally, after the operation became public, attempts to cover it up. The report says to prepare the president for his November 19th news conference, former National Security Advisor Robert McFarlane helped the White House create a false chronology to, in McFarlane's words, gild the president's motives. McFarlane told the board he knew that the chronology was misleading at least and wrong at worst. The report says inaccuracies in the account support the idea that North was concealing important information.
There was a deliberate effort to mislead by those who prepared these materials.
And the board said it is concerned that notes taken by John Poindexter at key meetings appear to be missing. Commission member Brent Scowcroft, a former National Security Advisor, said the problem was people, not process. It's not that the NSC structure was faulty, it's that the structure wasn't used. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, at the White House.
Senator John Tower, the chairman of the commission, is with us now. Senator, the president and his admirers have always taken great pride in his hands-off management style, but it seems to me that your commission report is a finely worded but general indictment of that. The consequences could have been much worse. Is this a fundamental flaw in the president?
It's not necessarily an indictment of the style, but an indictment of the system that failed to adjust to that style. As a matter of fact, the president's used that style ever since he's been in office, and with some degree of success. The fact is that a National Security Council operation should adjust to the style of the president.
But at the same time, you say the president must be responsible for the operation.
The president is ultimately responsible, and I think that we are critical of the president for not managing the operation more carefully. That is to say, asking for periodic review and asking to be informed on it.
What's the future then for him? At age 76, he's not likely to change his ways.
No, I don't think the style is likely to change, but I think as a result of our report that the president is going to be inspired to perhaps alter his style somewhat, but at the same time insist that the established procedures be followed. In fact, if the procedural guidelines the president himself set down had been followed, he probably wouldn't have gotten into this difficulty in the first place.
Some people say that there's no better choice for the new White House Chief of Staff than John Tower, who wrote this critical commission report and knows full well what went on in the past and how it should be corrected.
I have not been nominated for that job by anyone that I know, and I don't expect to be.
But if the president called, could you turn it down?
Well, the president hasn't called.
Well, that's a very politic answer. Thank you very much, Senator John Tower, chairman of the Tower Commission. We'll be back with more on this story in a moment.
Since the Isuzu iMark is a family car, I brought my family to tell you about it.
It's so roomy. I use it to deliver pianos in my spare time.
It looks neat, so it's great for picking up chicks. It's front-wheel drive, and it comes with 42 standard features, including aluminum alloy wheels and a poly.
My family. My iMark. I think I'll keep them.
For a good, honest value, see the iMark at your local Isuzu dealer today.
Kellogg's Corn Flakes is my favorite cereal. I love them a lot.
It's not fancy. It's just really good. It's just like a breath of fresh air early in the morning. It's crunchy and it just gets me going. You pour the Kellogg's Corn Flakes, put some milk on it, some fresh fruit, you got a perfect breakfast.
Kellogg's Corn Flakes means bringing my baby up the right way, the healthy way.
And I love them this much.
Corn Flakes from Kellogg's. What more could you want from a cereal?
Oh, a headache now. Anybody seen my extra strength Bufferin?
Yeah, my shoulder hurt. And Kim took it. Sore leg.
It'll help that. Kim, got my Bufferin?
Steve does. Got a backache moving scenery.
They all know how good my Bufferin is.
Extra strength Bufferin for Steve's backache, Kim's legs, John's shoulder, Debbie's headache. It goes to where you hurt fast with an extra strength dose of relief.
Curtain going up.
And I'm ready.
For headaches and a lot more, extra strength Bufferin, also in regular strength from Bristol-Myers.
The Tower Commission report presents some extraordinary details about the role of Lieutenant Colonel Oliver North and the secret operations that he ran out of the White House to supply the Nicaraguan Contras. This was while such support of the Contras was banned by Congress. North's operation apparently involved tens of millions of dollars. However, as NBC's Fred Francis reports tonight, much of that money is missing.
Where did all the money go? The Tower Board says it can't trace more than $20 million. $3 million from the August 1985 Israeli arms shipment to Iran, $6.3 million from a February 86 delivery of TOW missiles, $8.5 million from the sale of Hawk missiles, and $5 million more from the final shipment of TOWs. Without the Swiss bank records, there is no hard evidence the Contras ever received any of that money. But memos, charts, and computer messages leave little doubt that Oliver North ran a covert empire he called Project Democracy, with the Iranian arms sales profits and other funds. Last year, after Congress lifted its restriction on aid to the Contras, North no longer needed his private network and tried to sell it to the CIA. In a memo, North wrote he had aircraft, warehouses, supplies, maintenance facilities, ships, boats, leased houses, vehicles, ordnance, munitions, communications equipment, and a 6,500-foot runway, all worth $4.5 million, which would take the CIA months to acquire from scratch. And it was an extensive network for sale. One extraordinary chart found in Oliver North's safe reveals 24 separate operations organized like a multinational corporation. The chart shows that private fundraiser Carl Spitz Channel and 2 of his foundations raised money in this country for political commercials, and some of that money was intended to go overseas to buy arms. The chart shows that 2 overseas institutes existed to funnel money to 3 Contra leaders, Calero, Cruz, and Robello. And yet other dummy companies sent money to North's Swiss account, Lake Resources, to buy weapons. And in one of the most startling revelations, the report says that in 1984 and 85, prior to the Iran operation, the Contras received $33 million from a foreign official. NBC News has been told by 3 sources that official is a member of the Saudi royal family, whose identity is being protected by the administration. Fred Francis, NBC News, Washington.
The report also says that pressure on the United States to get involved in the Iran arms deal clearly came from Israel, but it says it remains unclear whether the initial proposal was an Israeli initiative brought on by the avarice of arms dealers or whether it came as a result of an American request for assistance. The Tower Commission concludes that whatever Israel's role may have been, American decision makers made their own decisions and they must bear responsibility for the consequences.
When your child gets a cold or an allergy, you get a lot of advice.
Give him some garlic.
You gotta sweat out a cold. A lot of advice.
Vaporize him.
But the best advice is what doctors have said millions of times. Take Dimetapp. Dimetapp in non-prescription formulas brings proven relief. So take the advice of doctors and pharmacists.
The garlic worked.
And take Dimetapp. The best advice you can take.
Cadillac Seville for 1987, an unmistakable statement of success. Its elegant design surrounds some of the most remarkable engineering in Cadillac history. Engineering designed to enhance your comfort, your control, and your confidence with impeccable manners on the road. And a new, longer warranty, all the while reminding you that Seville represents the ultimate in American luxury sedans. Seville, the elegant spirit of Cadillac.
It began as a simple test to see what hundreds of business people preferred. Long-distance calls made on the fiber optic lines of U.S. Sprint or calls made on AT&T's lines. Over 75% preferred the clarity of U.S. Sprint, and over 90% of them said they'd switch. That's not a test. That's a landslide. Call U.S. Sprint. We're building the first and only 100% fiber optic network clear across America.
The 300-page report by the Tower Commission does leave many parts of the Iran-Contra story still unresolved, and there is the remaining key question of whether this administration violated congressional restrictions on aid to the Contras. The White House must now await the judgment of the independent counsel and House and Senate investigators. As NBC's John Dancy reports now, many in Congress were sharply critical of the president today.
The next chapter in the Iran investigation will be played out before the select House and Senate committees. Those committees today voted to grant limited immunity to 3 lower-level officials involved in the arms dealing, including Oliver North's secretary, Fawn Hall. The administration expected a storm of criticism over the report, and it came immediately. Criticism of the president's detached leadership style.
The chickens came home to roost on this leadership style.
Poor management, poor records, and poor memories.
Criticism of what those policies created.
Ideological cowboys who thought their views were more important than this great body of law and this great system took things to their own hands and messed things up.
Senators were harsh on the president for saying the arms deal objective was to reopen relations with Iran.
He knew full well that we were dealing for hostages, that we were paying ransom for hostages.
As for Donald Regan, who the report says bears primary responsibility for the chaos that descended upon the White House,
if I were in Mr. Regan's shoes, I would tender my resignation.
Obviously, the president has to clean house and bring in a new team of advisors.
A key member of the Senate Select Committee says its investigation will now center on
what happened to the money. Who set the accounts up, who had access to the accounts, how much money was in the accounts, and where did the money go?
To get some answers to those questions, the Senate Select Committee voted today to order General Richard Secord, one of the key players in the deal, to disclose records of Swiss bank accounts he holds. Secord has already said he would not do that, so he could face contempt of Congress charges. John Dancy, NBC News, at the U.S. Capitol.
Now, where does the president go from here? In what direction does he steer his presidency? John Chancellor is also in Washington tonight. He looks at these questions in his commentary. John?
Tom? A lot of Americans got up today wondering if the Tower Commission would accuse the President of the United States of a criminal offense. What they got instead was the picture of a president who was out to lunch where his Iran and Contra policies were concerned. For most presidents, that would be a devastating judgment. He napped while his staff went crazy. But there's still a lot of affection for Ronald Reagan around the country. Politically, today's report could have been much worse for the president. It is necessary to remember that the staff that went crazy, the gang that couldn't shoot straight, was working toward policy goals set by the president. He wanted to trade arms for hostages. He was the one who called the Contras in Nicaragua the equivalent of the Founding Fathers. But the Tower Commission accuses him of no actual crime, only the sin of inattention. And Ronald Reagan, with all his skills, ought to be able to handle that accusation. He has one very big thing going for him. Nobody wants him to fail. Nobody wants another Nixon. He should be able to build on that as he reshapes his image and his administration. The public will demand a price for its forgiveness. Mr. Reagan is going to have to prove that he's really in charge, and that will be hard work for a 76-year-old man who hasn't been well and who is basically a laid-back manager. But that's what he has to do with new people around him. He has been wounded but not crippled by the Tower Commission. Its report gives him a chance to get his presidency back on the track if he works at it, which is commentary for this evening, Tom.
Thanks, John. And what are the hostages themselves, so far as we know, still in Lebanon tonight? In Tunisia, a top PLO official confirmed our report on this program last night that the 4 professors kidnapped last month now are in Syrian hands. Abu Iyad said they would be released within a few days, but at the same time, Syria's military commander in West Beirut denied our report, yet he issued a last warning to those holding the hostages. He said that Syria would take, in his words, drastic action if the 4 hostages are not released.
There are lots of furnaces you can choose for your home, but for the most efficient energy, forget all but the gas furnaces. And to cut energy costs further, consider only the high-efficiency gas furnaces. Of those, only one has advanced pulse technology, the Lennox Pulse Furnace. It will make your heating more efficient.
Take it from Dave Lennox. You can save a lot of gas with a Pulse.
Attaboy, Dave!
Gas, America's best energy value.
Your days go by fast. Your work never seems to end.
That's why we stand behind every Whirlpool appliance with our 24-hour Cool Line telephone service to help with problems or questions, and our national network of authorized tech care service outlets. Whirlpool, quality appliances.
We're making your world a little easier. Whirlpool.
You've probably heard about pain relievers that sound new, but they're not new to hospitals. For years, hospitals have known about ibuprofen, aspirin, and Tylenol products. And today, their overwhelming choice, Tylenol. In fact, last year, they dispensed Tylenol 10 times more than the leading aspirin and ibuprofen brands combined. If hospitals use Tylenol most, shouldn't your choice be Tylenol, too? Tylenol, the pain reliever hospitals use most.
For all of the intricacies of the Iran affair, it remains a story about a president and how he governed. After the Tower Commission released its report, we set out to learn what Americans were thinking about their president, and tonight NBC's John Hart has a sample of what they were feeling today.
Fishing the Clackamas River in Oregon, auto painter Sky Burkett.
That's the reason I voted him in there, because I thought he was a responsible person, but I'm not too sure anymore what's going on back there.
Riding in the Tucson Rodeo Parade in Arizona, chief of the Papago tribe, Josiah Moore.
I don't know why there was so much secrecy, particularly, and maybe because of his nature.
Working his Monticello winery in California, winemaker Jay Corley.
I would hope that he would develop a more statesman-like approach to things in the last 2 years of his office. And I think if he does that, that his 8 years will be remembered very positively.
Skiing, Loveland Basin, Colorado, ski patroller Ron Kidder.
It's a Washington thing. I don't think anybody around here is that concerned about it.
At the Denver airport, charter pilot Chuck Wright.
I don't see why we're trading arms for hostages. Seems that the people used guns to capture these people in the first place.
In Buffalo, New York, a different judgment from hostage Terry Anderson's sister, Peggy Say.
He had to sit across from the families and see our pain. He reacted to that as a human being.
The B&J Bar and Grill in Syracuse, Nebraska, disagreement between 2 farmers, Keith Kreifels and Keith Goring.
I don't think Reagan did right myself.
A president of a nation of this size can't know everything's going on.
Opposing views on the streets of New York from flower seller Gus Viliotis.
I think President Eric should have to give up.
And oil truck driver Fred Rose.
I think he's done a lot of good things throughout the years, and everybody's entitled to a little mistake, I would say.
A big mistake, according to Fulton County Commissioner Michael Lomax in Atlanta.
What this demonstrates is that we've had a president for the last 6 years who has given the appearance of being in charge and probably wasn't.
At the rehearsal of the Boston Symphony, bass player Leslie Martin, who voted for the president, made a double judgment.
If Reagan was involved in this, of course, I'd dare be disappointed. And if he was not involved in it, I'd dare be disappointed because he should have been sharp enough to know.
It is only an impression, but the temperature of today's opinion seems lower than in earlier samples, as if initial outrage is giving way to sadness. John Hart, NBC News, New York.
Fixing this water damage will cost $1,200. Could I have prevented it?
You could. Thompson's Water Seal protects wood, brick, and concrete with its special waterproofing formula. Thompson's Water Seal, a great defense against repair expense.
Runny nose, watery eyes, congestion, and a headache. When you've got all these sinus symptoms all together, you've got sinus complex. And that's too complex a problem for most cold or sinus remedies. You need maximum strength Sinutab, specially developed to relieve all the symptoms of sinus complex. Sinutab, you'll feel altogether better. And take new Sinutab nighttime at night to feel altogether better in the morning.
I'm Bryant Gumbel. Tomorrow morning on Today, Tower Commission member Brent Scowcroft.
I'm Jane Pauley, also Richard Chamberlain and Valerie Bertinelli.
Join us tomorrow morning on Today.
Tower Color Tile 1, come in, Tower.
Turn back now. There's a chance of heavy showers.
Negative, Tower. I've got this delivery for Color Tile's big half-price sale.
Can't give you clearance to land.
No problem. Store's in sight. We'll drop in from here. Geronimo! Half-price paint and wall covering. Half-price mosaic tile. Half-price ceramic wall and floor tile. Drop in now. Color Tile's big half-price sale good through Sunday.
Big Ford pickups. For a limited time, you can get 3.9% financing or cash savings up to $2,397. Available on specially equipped F-Series pickups. See your Ford dealer for details.
The Tower Commission report is an important step, and I know you may be tired of all of this, but it is by no means the last step in this Iran-Contra affair. Congress still must hold its hearings. There are special prosecutors at work, and as we learned today, the whole episode is so complex, involving so many players in so many countries. Who knows what else we may have to find out yet. And while what we have already discovered is unsettling, shocking that it could occur so few years after Watergate, there is this enduring fact about the American system. It has remarkable resiliency. The most powerful office in the land can be examined in such a candid, open fashion and still function if the president responds swiftly and persuasively. This city, this republic, has been through these convulsions before, and it will be again. We don't always learn from our mistakes, but sooner or later, we do begin to deal with them. That's Nightly News for this Thursday night. I'm Tom Brokaw. I'll be back tonight at 10:30, 9:30 Central Time, for an NBC News special report. Reagan in crisis. Where does the president go from here?
It's been a frustrating season for Michigan State coach Judd Heathcote. He's constantly juggled his lineup in an effort to find a winning combination. Things won't get any easier for the Spartans when they meet Iowa in Iowa City. The Hawks have experienced one of the finest campaigns in the school's history, and they hope to chalk up another victory when they meet Michigan State this Thursday at 7:30 right here on WHO TV 13.
Coming up next from News Center 13.
Union votes against wage cuts leave an uncertain future at Des Moines' Firestone plant. Ralph Robinson has a live eye report.
Diane Roberts tells us why these people were looking up in the sky today.
And should all newspaper carriers be adults?
Mike's forecast and Jeff with state wrestling highlights coming up next.
Hurry, don't miss out. This president's birthday party at Toyota dealers is almost over. If you want a deal from a big selection of 87 Toyota cars, trucks, and vans in stock, Move! If you want to sweeten your deal with a dealer incentive that could save you even more on every truck, cargo or panel van, and Toyota FX16, you'd better hurry. Stock is moving fast, but there's still time to celebrate with a #1 deal during the birthday celebration at Toyota dealers. Don't miss the party.
These men are identical